Good morning, lovely people, and welcome to Lee and the Sweet Life. I hope everybody's having a good day. Today I'm going to show you the next thing, number 3 in our series of basic cooking and baking, and I thought I'd show you some of our scones, a recipe for our scones. I will post the recipe at the end of this, so please keep watching. And it's one of the things that I made sure that I learned very quickly. If you've read any of my blogs, you'll know that I learned how to cook, one of the first places I learned how to cook was at my mum's feet, really, me and my sisters. And the thing that she couldn't ever really sort of master were scones. Don't ask me why, and I'm sure my sisters, who are all lovely, will come to me and say, oh, that's not true, but this is my memory of it. The thing I can't master is Yorkshire pudding. So listen, if anybody's got any hints and tips, I am always welcome. I've tried everything and every recipe, but you know, always welcome. So these are the most popular things in our cake cafe. So I thought I'd show you how to do them. People have a problem getting them to rise and all that sort of thing. This is, for me, the foolproof method of making them. I'm going to show you the recipe and I'm going to adapt it for sweet, which is currant, and I'm going to make the other lot of the batch in savoury, which we're going to use for mature cheddar cheese. The sweet, you can use this basic recipe for any type of thing. We've used this recipe for caramel, chocolate chip, cranberry and white chocolate, butternut squash and caramelized onion, anything. This is a really, really, really good recipe. So like I say, I'll post it at the end. But I'm going to show you how to make it. So it's going to be made in a couple of parts, obviously, because I'm going to show you the 2 different ways to adapt to sweet and savoury. Then I'm going to bake them, and I'm going to show you those, and then I'm going to write the recipe for you. So, and also, please, can you subscribe? I think I've nearly got 70 subscribers. I'm so excited. Can you subscribe and like and ring that bell, which I think tells you when the next one is going to be, when the next one's posted. Look out for all our blogs and our new website, which I'm going to be posting, the Sweet Life website, which I'm going to be posting blogs and things like that. So let's start now. Okay, so here's the recipe. Like I say, I'm going to be posting it in at the end, but I just thought, can you see this table? Is that fine? Okay, I've still got this hangy thing happening here, so anybody who wants to contribute to any stands or lighting, you know, I'm not a lighty person, but this is what's happening. So here's the recipe. So I have 200 grams of self-raising flour, okay, and I've obviously made that in 200 grams in each bowl because I'm going to do one sweet and one savoury. So let's just put those there. I have, the next thing is to have 1 egg, which I've just beat with some with 250 mils of milk, so that's in there. Okay, you can use semi-skimmed, you can use any sort of milk you want to. We use skimmed milk actually, so it doesn't really make any difference. And if you only have a little bit of milk and you want to top it up with water, absolutely fine. If you just have cream, put some cream in there and top it up with water, that's actually fine as well. This recipe is so forgiving. The thing with this recipe, the thing that I think people make mistakes about a lot are that they handle it too much. And I'm going to show you what happens when you don't. So I'm sort of reaching for lots of things because I've got things around me here because I am organised but equally not that organised. So we've got 200 grams of self-raising flour. We're going to put some baking powder into that, and I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of baking powder into that. Where is that? There it is. No, that's a tablespoon. 2 teaspoons. Now, when you're measuring baking powder, let me show that thing. I'm going to remove the label because this is a catering thing, so you can find baking powder everywhere. Baking powder, make sure that you have it nice and flat. Okay, so basically what you do when you're measuring with with spoons is fill it up and then just run a knife or your finger across it and do that. So we're going to put 2 teaspoons of baking powder into each one. So there you go, 1 and 2, just smooth it across so it's nice and flat. Okay, so I'll move that over there, so get rid of that, otherwise I'll end up putting things in in again. So then I'm gonna go to the fridge here, which is just happens to be next to me, and I've got some margarine. Now you can put butter in. Actually, no. Let's just rephrase that. Don't put butter in your scones. It doesn't work. Trust me. What I've got here is 100 grams of cold margarine. Stork is good, whatever you have, but don't skimp on it. You know, we're talking about good quality stuff. If you're making scones and you want to make them for guests and things, please just, you know, use the best thing you can. And Stork is actually a really good thing. We use giant, I think I've told you this, we use giant boxes of margarine, cooking margarine in our cake cafe. So I've taken this out and weighed it. So now here's the thing. This is a fantastic gadget, and I think it's called, I don't know what it's called actually, but it's for cutting in. This is maybe a term that a lot of people haven't heard, or maybe have heard and not realized what it means. Cutting in is when you incorporate your fats into your flours without actually using your hands. I was taught when I was younger to do this method when I'm incorporating my flats into my flour. Was anybody doing that as well? Yeah, I think that was just the way to do it. The problem with that is when the heat of your hand will melt the fat, which in this case is the margarine. And one of the things that makes your pastry and your scones rise is that if you have a cold fat, the heat of the hot oven, which in this case is going to be about 180 centigrade, will hit the cold fat, melt that, and then make that area puff up and help your scones or pastry to rise, or cake to rise. So if you're melting it with your hands, okay, obviously that's not going to happen. I'm sure there are people out there who are very much more scientific bakers than I am. I just know what works for me and what doesn't. So my thing is, please try and avoid touching your scones as much as possible. And so you'll see what's going to happen here. I'm going to use this cutting in instrument, and I'm going to do this on both of them. So this is, if you can afford, they're just a couple of pounds. It's not a lot of money. So it is about just literally incorporating the fat into the flour and the baking powder. Here we go. So just keep doing it until it resembles fine breadcrumbs. I think that's the description. I always, when I'm reading recipes, a thing that frustrates me is when recipe people the recipe people use terms and not explain what they mean. It's almost like somebody who's highly intellectual trying to show themselves as being highly intellectual because it makes them feel better. I just think that cooking and baking is so easy, it shouldn't be intimidating. And all you do is you just have to be brave when you're doing cooking and baking. And see, here, almost finished. Can you see how easy that is and how little effort that is? Okay, so I've done one. Let's do the other. So there it is to begin with. Just cutting it up. You can use 2 knives if you want to, and literally just do that. But as long as you don't keep touching it with your hands, so the fat doesn't melt. Or I'm so messy. Can you see this already? Gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm off on holiday tomorrow, so I'm making this YouTube thing to be posted while I'm off on holiday. So I hope people will see that. So when I get back, I'm going to be so brown. And the whole cake cafe is closed down for now, and we're all ready to go on our holes, September holes. There you go. Can you see how quick and easy that is? Seriously, you can find this in most supermarkets, only a couple of pounds, and it's great for pastry. I'm going to be doing some pastry recipes later, and it is actually great for that sort of thing. So, okay, there you go, setting that aside. Right, so we're going to have some cheese and some fruit. So the first one I'm going to be doing is cheese. And so here I have about 100 grams of cheese. Well, actually I have more than that, but I'm going to put approximately 100 grams in. I'm leaving some of this cheese because I wanted to put them on the top. Now again, it's entirely up to you. If you make your first batch of cheese scones and you feel that it isn't cheesy enough, then add some more cheese. Like I said, this recipe is amazingly forgiving. And you can sort of like revamp it to anything you want. So here I think we've got about 100 grams of cheese, and it's mature cheddar cheese. Don't use your mild cheese because you know, I think if you're going to have a cheese scone, have a cheese scone, okay? So if you get to the point where it isn't cheesy enough, then add more cheese. I'm walking away because actually I've forgotten thing for the cheese scones, which is some mustard powder. I don't know if anybody knows, but if you've ever made a cheese sauce, there's something about mustard that brings out the flavour of the cheese. You won't taste the mustard, but you will bring out the flavour of the cheese. So I'm putting in a half a teaspoon of mustard powder. Again, dip it in like that, pop it in. You can't use mustard paste or Dijon mustard or anything like that because it is a liquid. It is more fluid. The mustard powder is much more easy to use at this stage, and so there we go. I'm gonna spatula, offset spatula, just mix all of that in. Again, not using your hands. So, and you know you finish mixing when all of the cheese is covered with the flour and all the mustard powder is incorporated. Okay. Right, so that's the cheese mixture. Now before I start adding liquids to that, I'm going to do the sweet mixture. Okay, so we've still got the 200 grams of self-raising flour. We've had the 100 grams of cold margarine, incorporated that, cut into that. I'm going to add 50 grams of caster sugar because we want it, it's a sweet recipe. Let's get that in. It doesn't taste sweet, but we're trying to distinguish the sweet from the savoury here. And because we're doing a currant, I'm going to do 50 grams of currants as well. Let's incorporate that. There we go. Now again, you can add more currants if you want to, or less if you want to. Don't be tempted to add too many though, because there's something quite horrible, I think, about biting into a scone, especially with cream and jam and all that wonderfulness, and having too many currants in there. You want to have the taste, it is predominantly the taste of the scone that you want. But if you do making a sweet scone, again, this recipe is so fabulous. This is the time to exchange things. So instead of the currants, you can put chocolate chips in there, cranberries in there, white chocolate chips in there. You can do ginger, is fabulous, ginger stem. So you can chop the ginger really, really fine and pop that in there now, maybe with a little bit of the syrup, and you know, you'll get different flavors. So you can make this so many different ways. And this is the point, instead of the cheese, you would put maybe some smoked bacon in there, chopped up really crispy, chopped up really fine, instead of the cheese. Maybe some baked sweet potato in there, just some caramelized onion, anything you want instead of the cheese. And now's the time to add those flavorings. Okay, again, the recipe is going to be at the end. So here I have in this jug, and I'm going to show you how I did this in a second, but I have 1 egg and 250 grams of milk, and I'm going to show you what I did with that. So here we go. Really tricky, you know. So crack an egg, make sure there's no shell in there, into a jug, and then add 250 mils of your liquid. again, this is the thing where people will sort of get their hands in and make lots and lots of contact with the fats and everything, but again, my thing is, please don't try and limit your contact with the mixture as much as possible. So I'm going to pour that into there, and the same into the savoury. Use a spatula or a knife, mix it up. This is the point where you sort of go, it's going to be too wet or too dry. It's your judgment. I have got some extra flour, self-raising flour in a container just next to me, just in case it's too wet, and it might be. Every scale is different, and can you see that's way too wet? So what I'm going to do is just add more to that. Let's just see. And add little bits at a time until you get to the right consistency. Keep mixing it until all of the flour is incorporated. Can you see? And I'm going to touch it because I want you to see what it's like. So it's very soft and very light and quite sticky. So with the recipe at the end, what I'll do is I'll add an extra 100 grams or so of self-raising flour to the recipe so that you can judge, so you can use it for the excess. Okay, so that is the sweet. Put that aside. Let's talk about the savoury ones, which is, oh, I'm so messy, which is the cheese. And again, I'm suspecting this will be too liquid. I think my advice with this is just give it a go. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You have some scones that taste really good but don't look very nice. You know, oh gosh, that's fine. Okay. So that doesn't need any more flour in. How cool is that? There you go. Okay, again, it's soft. Actually, I am going to put just a little bit more flour in there because it's too sticky. See how it was sticking to my fingers there? Too sticky to my fingers. So that's maybe another 50 grams of flour in there. Okay. Again, this is incredibly forgiving, this recipe. So I have to admit that it took me a while because I don't use a recipe now for scones. Everything is just to the eye. I'm just going to scrape that off. Can you see that's perfect now? Okay. Everything is just to the eye. So when I was thinking about doing this recipe to give to you as a gift, I had to go through it and write everything down again because I make this recipe so often. I literally just pour flour and baking powder and mustard powder and everything else into it without even thinking. It's just more about the eye, and that's what you will get like soon, very, very soon. Okay, so anyway, put those aside. I'm just going to get some more self-raising flour. And just to pop onto this, my table, because what I want to do, again, I'm not going to use a rolling pin. I'm not going to use anything like that. I'm not going to touch it too much. So all I'm going to do is tip that out onto the floured surface and to very quickly and gently push it down. And you should be able to see still little blobs of margarine in there. And I'm going to get this to, and I've brought a tape measure because I'm never sure, like I say, I make this by eye all the time. So, and these are going to rise really well. So, what is that, about an inch and a half, maybe an inch to an inch and a half thick. Okay, now I've got these cutters here, and you can use any cutters you like. So this big one, which is the one we use for our cake cafe, that's 3.5 inches. This is a 2.5 to 3 inches, and this is a 2-inch. Now, if you're thinking about having a high tea or something like that, I would go for the smaller, the 2 inches. If you're looking for a family get together, maybe go for the 3.5 inches. But we're going to go for the 2.5 to 3 inches cutter. All right. So, and I'm going to use the straight edge. And it doesn't matter whether you've got plastic or metal, whatever's your favorite cutter. I use completely different ones, whatever I feel like using at the time. So literally just cut, push down. Can you see those? I'm going to leave them there so you can see them. And this is our cheese. And they should come out fairly easily, because it's not too soft, it's not too wet, and you haven't handled it. The more you handle these, the more the gluten starts to react, and it gets you get scones that are tough. You know, you get tough scones. So the gluten will sort of start to activate, and you'll get awful scones. So, like I say, do not handle them too much. You see, I've just put everything together and very quickly. No, I'm not precious about it. I'm just putting them all to put all the bits together and to cut them all out. I'm trying not to handle it too much. There you go. And this is what we call the knobbly bit. Okay. I always think there's a knobbly bit at the end, which is going to be smaller. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a small one out there. So what I'll just do is pop that into this. In fact, I won't. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so that's the knobbly bit. Okay, so let's do the fruit scones. Again, nice lot of flour on there. And then I'm just going to tip that out and press it down till it's about the same thickness as the others. Okay, and then I'm going to cut those out. You can hear this noise as I go down. Oh. Yeah, I think the only tip, I keep saying it again and again and again, don't touch them as much as you think you need to. Don't use rolling pins. Squish it all together as quick as you can. Flatten it down to the thickness you need. Cut it out. The bit at the end called the knobbly bit, I'm sure there's an official name for that sort of thing. This is the bit that we give to either my lovely ladies here, eat it, or the lovely Mr. G has it, or see, that's the bit that I'm just going to call the knobbly bit and just literally put into the cutter out just to give it a bit of a shape there. Or customers get it. So what I'm going to do now, let's pop those over there. I have a baking sheet, which is lined with non-stick baking parchment, not greased with paper, please, non-stick baking parchment, which you can find anywhere. And I'm going to pop those onto the tray. I'm going to do fruit on one side and cheese on the other. And they're going to rise up and a little bit out, not amazing, not too wide. Put those near the edges there because our oven is quite a strong fan on our oven, so it tends to blow the baking powder around. So give them a nice little space, maybe a couple of inches of space there. I'm just going to move these around a little bit more because I want to get them all on the tray, and I want to show you what you can do with this. Okay, move that out the way a second. I'll clear that up later. Right, so then just take one of your jugs, an extra egg, give it a little bit of a beat, add a little bit of milk. We're just going to make an egg wash for this. So judgment, just a little bit. And then, and I should have had this ready beforehand, but I didn't. Then take a I've got a silicone brush, but you can use anything that you have, and just liberally cover all of the scones. Don't be shy with it. That's going to give you that nice golden crusty on the outside. And that's part of the whole thing. And actually, you know, if you make too many of these, once they're cooled, they will freeze. If we have any left over in the cake cafe, you know, the staff do take them home and they freeze them, and they'll be absolutely fine the next day once they're defrosted. So I have covered them all in the egg wash, and I have the fruit here and the cheese here. And this is where the extra grated cheese comes in. Remember, this is mature cheddar cheese. Use whatever you like, red or white, it doesn't matter, but give it some flavour. And I'm putting a nice liberal lot on the top. Very often I go to places and they go, oh, we have a cheese scone, and actually they haven't put any cheese inside it. They just tends to put cheese on the outside, which is a bit lazy, I think. So nice liberal lot on the outside of your scone, which is what the extra cheese is for. And then I'm going to put those into, don't waste any, if there's any cheese on the board, put it onto your scones. And I'm going to pop these into the oven, and I'm going to cook them until they're nice golden brown at a temperature of 180 centigrade. And if they're not done after 20 minutes, that's the minimum amount of time, because all ovens vary obviously, then turn them around, take them out, turn them around in your oven, and then check on them every minute. So they shouldn't take more than 25, 27 minutes, depending on your oven, but we have a super duper turbo oven and it takes 20 minutes. So I'm going to put those in the oven, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you what they look like, and then I'm going to post everything else. So I'll see you in just a bit. So here are the scones fresh out of the oven. These took 20 minutes to bake, and you can see how lovely and brown they are, and nice and solid on the top, nice and crispy. So these are the cheese. Oh, moving them off. These are the cheese, these are the fruit, which is the currant. This is the knobbly bit from the cheese. And you can see how mismatched their shapes are. They're not like pre-packaged, shop-bought scones that you have a date on. I find it really odd that you buy a cake in a supermarket that has a sell-by date, which is like 2 weeks away. It's very odd. So these have been baked for 20 minutes in our oven. So because of the smaller side, obviously, when I was talking about earlier about how long to bake things for, not only does it depend on your temperature of your oven, but it also depends on how big your scones are. And I suddenly realized that these are the smaller size, or the middle size, so they would have taken just 20 minutes. And I turned them round mid-bake just so that we would get brown all over. These are going to my friends, because I say I'm off on holiday. So the lovely Lynn from Woollyback, who's a master knitter and knits for lots and lots of BBC programmes, but she doesn't shout about it, she's going to get some. And a lovely friend of mine who has a fashion shop in Stanhope, which is called the Village Lantern, she's going to get some. So I will see you next time. I'm off on holiday, but just subscribe and like, ring the bell. Like I say, I've nearly got 70, I'm so excited. And I'll keep watching, because the recipe will be coming up very, very soon. Okay, bye, thanks for watching. Well, here's the recipe for the scones. This is the basic recipe, and then I'll show you the ones to adapt for savoury or sweet. So the basic recipe is 200 grams of self-raising flour, 100 grams of the cold margarine, 1 egg plus 250 mils of milk / water. That's entirely up to you. I would put milk in plus water if you want to, or just 100% milk. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, so that's the basic recipe before you add any flavourings or anything like that. So if you just wanted a plain scone, that's the one to go to. Okay. Oh, and also you need extra self-raising flour for the table and cutting out, that sort of thing. So have excess. All right. So this is the one for adapting to the savoury, which we use cheese, but you can use lots of other things, and if you watch the whole video you'll see some of the suggestions there. This is the sweet, and we use currants, but again you'll see, if you watch the whole video, you'll see lots of suggestions there. So if you're adapting it to a savoury, use half a teaspoon of mustard powder, and for the cheese and then put out whatever flavourings you want to, whether it's bacon or whatever at that point. But if you want the cheese, it's 100 grams of mature cheddar, unless you want to have it more, but that's according to taste, it's entirely up to you. And extra grated cheese for the top, and don't forget to grate your cheese, obviously you don't want big slices in it. And for the sweet, for the currant, you're going to have a quarter cup or 50 grams of caster sugar, and a quarter cup or 50 grams of the currants. If you wanted to add something else for your sweetness, for instance ginger or white chocolate chip or something like that, still keep the caster sugar, and instead of the currants, substitute that for the other thing you're going to make. So have a great time. Good luck with all of that. It'll be awesome. Let me know your feedback, because I'd love to know how it goes, and I shall see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Bye.